G'day, campers. How are you? Welcome to another Thursday night live here on the Campfire tonight. A very special night for me. I've got a beautiful crew with me tonight, and we're talking about resilience. And tonight, with me tonight, I've got John Hope, life and business strategist, Paul Stretton-Stephen, future mindset coach, author, and speaker, and the gorgeous Stacey Copas, resilience keynote speaker, author, trainer, and coach. And tonight, we're here to talk about resilience. I was told everybody that I was going to be bringing my A game, and it's here. I'm going to ask everybody to introduce themselves by explaining to everybody how you're resilient, how you became resilient. I'm going to ask for you to start, please, John.
Me? Oh shit. Okay, talk about me throwing
On the spot.
Mate, the resilience, I never heard of that word until I'd spent 20 years in the cops and I met a bloke called Roger Peters and he called me resilient and I thought I had a disease. I had to look it up, seriously. I seriously did. And he said, I've said it in my martial arts. I had a martial arts background. I've had other issues with family members, which have put me in a position where I learnt some resilient skills at a very young age. I didn't know. For me, they were coping mechanisms. There's people who've been through much worse than me in life, but I learnt from a very young age to be resilient. I then spent 20 years in the cops. I got out of that. You get labelled with the PTSD and all that, and I've seen a lot of friends that got either they were suicidal or they committed suicide. People with drug overdose, addictions and overdoses. And so I never really understood that because I had the same thing, but I was going, well, why don't I feel that way? And he said, because you're resilient, because I took action. So but the thing before you take action is I accepted where I was at. I accepted what happened. If something happens, I accept it. I think that's the first step to resilience. Second step to resilience is to get up and then start punching. Don't just get up and get knocked down again. Get up and punch back. So resilience for me was pretty passionate. Roger Peters, the psychologist that who's the foremost expert on police with PTSD in the world. He's Newcastle based, awesome fella. He sort of said to me one time, "Oh, you need to do YouTube things," and I'm technically disabled, like I can't do that sort of stuff. But anyway, he just said, sort of pushing to my resilience strengths and talk about my experiences and stuff, which I sort of went down a coaching regime and I spoke to Brooke Shields about resilience. I asked her straight direct about resilience on stage in LA. And she's someone that's written a book on postpartum depression. Having depression about having your own kids, it's pretty bad. Yeah. And she was awesome. There's a copy of that in the Campfire Project. You can see it when we spoke. It was only posted a couple of weeks ago. So, resilience for me is something. I was basically thrown in the deep end, and then I was thrown in the deep end to understand what I was in the deep end for. And resilience is just you got to accept where you are. Then you got to start. Then you got to fight back. That's it. You don't accept it. You accept it, but then you just you've got to get yourself back to where you want to be. You can't let things hold you down. You got to get up and you got to keep punching.
Yep.
So that's my answer to that.
Beautiful. No, perfect. No, this is what it's about. I want to hear how you become resilient and what your version of it is. Paul.
Okay. Well, where do you start? I mean, one of the things. My story kind of echoes John's in some respects. I mean, he and I have discussed this as well. And I've had, I would say, two real events in my life, three events in my life where I say I've experienced adversity. And that's led me to where I am today, where I give talks about adversity into action. And those events are, I had a back injury when I was a physical education instructor. I was really super fit and, teaching others and coaching, doing a lot of coaching, a lot of martial arts, the same as John. And I went home one day, sat on the sofa, got up, had no left leg. It just didn't function. And I wasn't too worried. I just thought he'd just gone to sleep, like it does. And anyway, then the waterworks didn't work. And I called the doctor. He said, I'm sending an ambulance. It'll be there in 10 minutes. I said, really? He said, yeah, 10 minutes. He said, you're off. And that night, just a few hours later, I was being operated on.
Yeah.
And that was a shock to the system. But it wasn't so traumatic. It was like, okay, had the operation, going to be back to normal, do rehab, back to work as soon as I can. And that was the kind of mindset and attitude that I'd adopted at that point. But fast forward 3 years, I had a slip on a wet, just simple thing like a slip on a wet floor, and the same disc went. And that was more serious because it was in the same site, there was scar tissue there, and it needed neurosurgeons. And they said there was a risk of paralysis. And that was frightening. I won't deny that. That was frightening. Being so fit, having come from the military and then being a physical education instructor, and then bang, you could have paralysis. Anyway, I woke up from the operation and there was paralysis from the knee down on the left leg. And they had no time scale as to whether that would heal or not. And that was devastating. And I remember going home and he said, look, just go with it. He said, we got no time scale. We'll check up on you every now and again. He says, and just get used to life on elbow crutches in a wheelchair. And that was it. And I remember going back months later and it was still the same, elbow crutches in a wheelchair. And he just said, look, we've had another scan and nothing's improving. Just get used to that life. And I think I've said before that you can't really storm out of a doctor's office on elbow crutches. It's really slow, isn't it? But the intention's there. You're really trying your best and you're going like inch and an inch and another inch. And that was really tough. But over time, you learn. I mean, it was devastating. I remember getting home from that appointment. I drove an hour. Well, I didn't drive. I had a driver for me. Drove an hour home in total silence. And I got home and my wife at the time then said, what's the prognosis? And I said exactly what he'd said. She goes, okay, I want a divorce then. And that was like a double whammy in the same day. But, you have to rebound. It was a case of find a place to live. And I remember I couldn't drive, so she drove for me to find these places to live. Well, this flat's good. This flat's good. You live in it then. I'll live in the house with the kids. All that sort of stuff going on, and people have experienced this around the world, people listening. But all these steps of adversity make you stronger. When I was lying on my back recovering, I was like, what am I going to do? They're going to medically retire me from work. I'm 33, 34, whatever it was. So I bought a computer. I knew nothing about computers. I lay on my back, reading the manual, learning how to use a computer. I wanted to play the sax. I could sit up for 15 minutes and no more. I got a sax teacher who would come and teach me for 15 minutes. And away you go. And then 20 minutes and then half an hour. You build it up. But it's back to this acceptance that John said, I think. You accept the situation for what it is. You may not accept what you've become and why you're there. You accept the situation. And when you do that, you can find purpose. And that's it. That's the step I see before action. Because you can, if you take action, well, where are you taking it? What's the end game here? You've got to find that purpose first in here. And for some people, that's the most difficult part. Once you've got through the acceptance part, and we're all, to a lesser degree, we're fragile in some way, shape, or form. And some of us are more fragile than others. And finding that acceptance is difficult. And there's no time scale in that. From my point of view, the quicker the better. You can move on.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. Computer, saxophone, education. I knew with my background in military, Marines, military police, physical education, who's going to take me with elbow crutches in a wheelchair? My occupational experience is now invalid, isn't it? In many ways. So I re-educated. I joined university and I remember the disability advisor saying to me, okay, now, for the next couple of years, just take it easy, get used to your new life and your new circumstances. I said, whoa, stop. What do you mean? She said, no, this is what people do. I said, okay, but not me. I said, I'm starting university Monday. And she's like, no, it's too early. I said, no, I've signed up. I go Monday. That's it. I'm gone. And that's exactly what I did. Fast forward a few years, I end up in education, and I'm doing okay. I'm a head teacher, or you might call a principal over there, do you? In the school?
Yeah, you do. Yep.
Somebody at the top. And I went for an eye test, and they said, you've got a cataract in your left eye. I said, okay, what do I do with that? And they said, go and see a specialist. They'll take it out, put a lens in, you're done. Great, okay. Set that up. Did the operation, the eyesight didn't improve. If you imagine, I'm in a day ward, and there's about 40 people in there, and I'm the youngest. Everybody's like 60 plus, and I'm the youngest there. And I'm the only one that comes out and the eye hasn't improved. Everybody comes out, oh, it's brilliant, this lens, fantastic. Oh, I can see this now. Oh, I can see that. And you come out, you go, nothing, no change. And they're like, oh, okay, more tests. So the final result is they said, look, there's this eye condition you've got. It's manifested in the left eye where you can only see light and movement. It's in the right eye, but it hasn't manifested yet. And we don't know if it will. And if it does, how long that will be. So I went to Spain for a job. I saw the professor in the hospital. I said, look, I've got this chance of a job. He said, you just go and take it and enjoy life. He said, we've got no time scales. So I took his advice and lived it to the full. And away we went. And we expected, based on the research, we had 2 or 3 years in Spain. But we ended up with 9 before it finally went. And I woke up one morning, Easter 2015, and that was it. The right eye was practically the same as the left. It's a little bit better. I can blow you up, John, and see where you are on the screen, but you wouldn't like to see my big eyes and everything. So that's the condition I'm in now. So I got medically retired again, twice. So what do I do? Well, I don't want to give up work, and I still need to earn. And my initial thoughts were, I tell you what, I'll write. I've never written a book before, but I'll write. And I wrote a young adult novel using a microphone, speech-to-text software, which I had to learn, and then text-to-speech software to read it back. I had no idea if it was any good, so I sent it off for a manuscript assessment, and it came back, it was okay. So I put it out. And then somebody said, why do you write thrillers? You've been in the military. I said, okay. So I wrote three thrillers as well. So, but writing's great, but it's so insular, and you're on your own. And I'm a people person. All the jobs I've done in my life are with people. So somebody asked me to do some coaching with them again. I used to do a bit before. And I did, and I haven't looked back. So when I was a physical education officer with 9 coaching qualifications in different sports, that stood me in good stead for what I'm doing now. And this is where I am. And that's where my resilience has come from. And I now help others with their resilience and adversity into action. And that's what, is needed.
Mate, I am forever grateful I know you and we've connected, because I think you're a gorgeous human being. And thank you for sharing that. Just before we go on too much, I want to get into Stacey's. There's a comment that's just popped up here, and it's an important one for me tonight. Tonight's an important night for me. We're talking about resilience, and we're talking about how to get through adversity, and it's about taking a step forward. Tonight, watching us, a John and Rhonda, who took me in when I was kicked out of home. No real place to go, living in their garden shed, and they took me in. Tonight, for me, I'm bringing my A game for this reason, because they're a gorgeous family, and there's another reason which I'll thank later. So thank you for watching, and thank you guys for being on. With the comments, guys, I can't actually see who it is unless you give StreamYard permission. So if you could just put your initials or something next to it, that'd be great. Right now, I'd like to introduce. Thank you very much, Paul. I really appreciate that. John, I'm muting your microphone at the moment just because we've got background noise, if that's okay. And then so you have to unmute yourself. No, it's echoing. So now I'd like to introduce Stacey. Stacey, please let us know what resilience is to you and how you came about.
Yeah, look, similarly to John, resilience wasn't a word that I'd ever come across until somebody else had thrown it at me, essentially. And that was in my early 30s, mid 30s. And because I looked at, like, I knew that I'd overcome a lot of adversity. And I think the biggest part, the biggest adversity I'd overcome is that at 12 years old, I actually broke my neck and drowned in a relative's backyard swimming pool. And that was, it was absolutely devastating for me. And prior to that accident, I was an athlete. I was a pitcher in a softball team. I was one of the first 2 girls to ever play soccer for the school. This is 30 years ago. And I was a rep runner every distance from the 100 meters to the cross country. I just got into a selective agricultural high school. My lifelong dream was to become a vet. The day after that, I was due to perform in my school production. I had, pretty normal family, great friends. And then to have this accident and be told that night in a, intensive care unit that I'd actually broken my neck and drowned, I'd never walk again, then I literally felt like my life was over at that point in time. And I ended up spending 8 weeks flat on my back with sandbags either side of my head, and I couldn't do anything for myself. I couldn't scratch my head, couldn't turn pages of the book. So I went from being this fiercely independent, active young woman to being dependent on others for absolutely everything. And, it was absolutely soul destroying at that time. I ended up spending 7 months in hospital because the doctor said I was too young to go to a rehab centre, which is where most people went to get intensive therapy after an injury such as mine. And what that meant is when I eventually did leave hospital, like, I wasn't in much better shape than when I went in. And like, I couldn't dress myself, couldn't go to the bathroom without help. I couldn't even push my wheelchair even on a flat surface. And to top it off, a few days after leaving hospital, I ended up starting high school in a school far from home where I didn't know a single soul. So it certainly felt like the universe had it in for me at that point in time. The high school years ended up being incredibly tough. I was really bitter and angry and resentful. I didn't accept what had happened at that point in time. And all of those emotions were directed at myself because I was in this situation because of my own actions. And I hid it really well from people. I was really good at nothing to see here, getting on with life. But I did like a lot of most teenagers did, and my outlet was getting drunk and getting stoned. And I spent a great deal of my teenage years in that state. And looking back, I was creating these moments of artificial happiness where I didn't feel that I had any in my everyday. And also what I've discovered recently through, really telling my story more and more is that while physically I drowned once, emotionally I was drowning every single day at that point in time. Thankfully, as I got towards the end of high school and into my 20s, I completely changed the way I looked at the accident, and I began to look at it with absolute gratitude. And I looked at it and I saw that it had changed my life for the better. And how most people think, how the hell is ending up a quadriplegic and needing a wheelchair for the rest of your life positive? When people spend time with me, they quickly realize that I am really happy with how my life's panned out. And I can say with absolute certainty, I've had the most remarkable experiences and opportunities that I would never have had my life taken the path that I planned it. And it wasn't until I got right into my 30s that I started on a bit more of a personal development journey. But along the way, people kept saying, Stace, how did you end up so positive and optimistic, even though you've had so much shit go wrong along the way? But I had what I called at the time little old me syndrome, where it was like, nothing to see here, nothing special, move along. And eventually I ended up doing some volunteer work in the Solomon Islands and mentoring people with disability over there. And that was a real turning point for me. It gave me an insight that my life experience was valuable to other people. And when I came back from that trip, that's when the switch had flipped and I knew I had to do something more impactful and meaningful for my life. So I thought that I would learn about writing and speaking and all those sort of things so I could do more work like that. But it was during that process that a mentor at the time said to me, you need to be telling your story, not anybody else's story. You need to tell your story. And I said, no, look, I don't want to tell my story. I'm a woman from Western Sydney. Everyone will think I'm a total wanker for talking about myself. So I thought, nope, not going to do that. And then he turned around to me and he said, Stace, he said, with your story, if you don't share what you've learned and how you've turned your life around, you are selfish. And I thought, how can I argue with that? And because of that conversation, 9 years later, I'm now an international keynote speaker. I've published a book, How to Be Resilient. Coach. I speak all over the place. I mentor and get to do amazing things. And I've been able to have a huge impact on people just by being able to reverse engineer how I turn my life around and how I continue to say yes to opportunities that challenge me, and then share those stories and the crazy crap, the shit that goes wrong along the way, which all end up being amazing adventures for learnings. So I'm so grateful for the opportunities I've had, and now I feel a really deep sense of a moral obligation and a moral responsibility to keep growing and learning and evolving as a human, to connect with people on the deepest level, and to keep living my life out loud so that I can help and inspire and motivate and give people the tools to be able to challenge adversity in their life and be able to just extract the opportunities in change, adversity, and particularly in these times we're in right now is to actually find the gift in uncertainty as well. So It's been an amazing journey, and I'm super grateful for it. And the thing I'm most grateful for is the people that I've been able to have the opportunity to connect with along the way. So this is a little snapshot of my journey of resilience.
Yeah, gorgeous. Thank you. And on that, it is a little snapshot. We've actually had a much deeper conversation, and based around your life. And I'm really hoping people get to watch that. It'll be up on the Campfire in the next little bit when I pull my finger out and get all the tech right. So, and tonight's conversation is resilience. And I'm going to share my story. I wasn't going to, but I'm going to put my two bobs in too, because I've had an amazing opportunity in life that most people wouldn't want to walk down. And it's hard to say it in front of people that I know that are watching, but it's them that are so important to me, because, at a time when I was in a fair bit of trouble, like John, I spoke to him today, so I remember the time when we went to football and you've grabbed this bloke and you're about to headbutt him, in the corner of your eye, you could just see the umpire and you thought, Tassie football trip, and I kissed him. That's John's favourite story about me. But he won't tell you the time when we ran out of firewood and I ripped down the back fence because, we thought we'd get more firewood, and he woke up in the morning, and he could literally see his next door neighbours and they copped his full rat. I was a shithead, I was on a path to destruction. But then I had these beautiful people come into my life and just hold space for me, and then move along a bit later, I blew myself apart for years, not dealing with my crap. And, I held my wife in my right arm and blood pouring out her head and her mouth, and my son in my left arm. And, my world was gone. She had to learn to walk and talk again. I lost my business. I lost all my investments, everything. And you see me pop up and I'm always smiling, and every single time it's about taking action. And it's hard. It's hard to take action sometimes, and it's hard to upgrade yourself. But there's 4 people on your screen tonight that have done that do that consistently. That I know if at any time you needed to reach out, every one of these people will go, hey, how you doing? So tonight I'm going to not put too much of me in here, but I really want to open up to some questions, and there's been some good ones. I'm going to go back to the early one, if that's all right, and we're going to just go around around the board. So technology is an opportunity.
Scotty, can I be last? Because I've been hydrating all day and I need to dehydrate. I'm sorry. It's getting to the point where I'm going, all the back teeth are floating.
I've been about that the whole time I've been doing that. So at some point, I'm going to have to run. I'm like, anyway, yeah, this is what happens. I wish to pose a question. Thinking about these things tears me out. I'm wondering if the emotional response some subjects bring is the reason I get so tired. What are your thoughts on that? Is Stacey or Paul?
I think it. Can I speak?
Yeah.
I think it depends on the information that you're looking at, because at the moment, for example, with the pandemic, I mean, I hear all the time people getting tired. I mean, but they're watching the news constantly. You know, they're watching morning, they're watching noon, they're watching evening, and then they say they can't sleep, and because these things play on your emotions, and you're unsettled. It will disrupt your sleeping pattern. It'll disrupt your waking life as well.
Yeah.
So why not just watch it in the morning? You know, when you're fresh, you've got up, watch the news in the morning, catch up, and then leave it till the next day.
Yep.
Then you've got the rest of the day to come into balance, mull over what you've heard, discuss it with other people if you need to. But then you've got other things that can distract you and disrupt that pattern of emotional thinking, emotional hardship. And then you can sleep well and then get up the next day and see the news again, if you really need to. But if you're constantly reading things or listening to things that disrupt you and disturb you on an emotional level, then you need to take action, as we've been saying, and try other methods. And that's one of the methods I've been talking about with a lot of people lately, is just watch it once a day if you have to.
I'm going to jump on that for a sec, because I'm a massive believer in input equals output. The more negativity, and I think we can probably all agree the news is filled with fear and you know, not the greatest emotions inside of things. If it's constantly going in, that's what's going to come out. And that's every part of your life. So protecting what's coming in for me is everything. And I think that's similar to what you would have said there, Paul. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. Stacey, do you want me to go and pop the question back up?
Yes, please.
Beautiful.
Goldfish brain.
Hey, it's all the same.
Yeah. Oh, look, I guess it also it depends on the threshold as well. I think that sometimes it can be just because there's just been an abundance of it, and as far as Paul's reference to the news, I found that too. I know when this pandemic started, I generally don't watch the news and I don't read the newspapers, but I found myself watching press conferences live, then going and getting really angry on Twitter, and then watching the news just to see what hysteria they were whipping up, and it was really draining me. So now I generally don't watch any news. I have not watched a press conference in about 4 weeks, and if I find out, if it's something I need to know, I'll hear about it. It'll trend on Twitter, or someone will tell me in a conversation that I have anyway. None of it is going to impact my life greatly in any given moment. It's nothing I have to act on or take any. I don't have to do anything with it other than, it's not helpful. But also I think some people have a tendency to be, I guess we get labelled empaths, so that people that are generally very open and feel very deeply the stuff that they do come in contact with, the people they come in contact with. And it may not be something negative like news. It just might be hearing another person's story, and it might just touch them deeply. And that can be very tiring. And I know personally, as far as speaking goes, one of the things I guess I wasn't prepared for once I first started doing this was the amount of people that would come and tell their stories to me afterwards, and ask questions and want advice and do all that stuff. And I absolutely adore doing that. But in the very early days, it exhausted me, because I took in everybody's energy and I felt everything deeply. And now I'm better at protecting my energy. It doesn't mean that I don't give them the space or hold the space for them. It just means that I'm better at not letting it get very deep into me. And it doesn't mean the experience that they have with me is any less than someone may have had in the past. It's doing things that make sure that you actually build up your energy levels, so that you don't get worn down as much. So it's obviously doing some proactive stuff to make sure that you're topped up and your cup's full, so that you can actually then hold a space for other people. So I think that's something that I've really found has made a difference for me.
That's awesome. I love hearing that, because one of the things that when people sort of see you doing so well and they see you so strong, you still feel the emotion. It's not like you're immune to it. You just gain strength in learning how to deal with it, and you're more aware of it. So therefore, you get to protect it a little bit better. Would you agree with that?
Definitely agree with that. I like to feel very, very deeply. I want to connect very, very deeply with people, but I can do it in a way now that it energizes me more than drains me, and that's because my connection with myself is so deep and so solid. So that's what I've found. If I can make sure that self-care, connection with self, connection with whatever it is out there that's greater than us, that sort of stuff, that's what keeps me very strong. And then that allows me to be more open and connect with people on a deep level, but not get drained or feel worn out by it.
Beautiful answer. Beautiful. I love it. Thank you. I'm gonna pop the question back up for you too, John, if that's all right.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So thank you.
Emotional responses on subjects bring reasons I get so tired. You've got two basic drives. I've spoken about this before. You got the two basic emotions. Every action you take, every thing you do is born out of one or two emotions: love and fear. Now, if it's love, the endocrine system kicks in. It's all good. It's positive. It's pumping good things into your system. It's giving you energy. You're moving forward. You're doing what you want to do. But if the negative stuff, like we're saying, like these guys both said about with the news, working with coppers, coppers stopped watching news like 5 years in, because it's all negative. The only positive part of the news or a newspaper is the sport page, and even that's starting to get negative. You know what I mean? Like it, and I think we're in a position at the moment, especially with the coronavirus, that they're starting to criticise themselves. If you look at the news, they're starting to show that they're negative, and they are. They come from a negative spot, and if you do that, and like you say, it saps energy from you. When you're in a fear response, when you're in fight or flight, it's sapping energy from you. It's putting hormones and things into your body that sap you of energy, that's supposed to make you just run like it. It's the same thing as if a lion appeared and you had to run. So it's supposed to be over and done, but no, we get the same response over an email, over news. We're in a position where, we've got to promote a bit of resilience. But on top of the resilience, I think we need to promote leadership, because everything in the world rises and falls on leadership, and you've got to lead people out of that. And our politicians are authoritarians. There's no such thing as leadership when it comes to our politicians. They don't lead us. And they sit there, and once they get a hard question, they go, "Here, speak to the medical expert." Like it's. I think we need. I think leadership is something that we really need to look at the moment, and we've got a lot of different opinions. We've got a lot of different medical advice, and that creates confusion, and that's where people get in the fear zone. Do I do this? Do I don't do that? It's a natural response, but we just need more leadership around us to get us out of that negative energy, because it's not sustainable to stay there. Yep. And that, in a sense, is resilience. You go, okay, we've got some change. We've got to adapt to it. We've got to lead ourselves out of any negativity. So, yeah, the action is leadership.
Yep.
The acceptance is knowing where you are, but the action is the leadership to get you out. Does that make sense?
On that, yeah, it does. On that, with the acceptance, when we all sort of introduced each other and we're talking about how to move through resilience, how we all move through our resilience, it all came down to acceptance of where we're at. And to actually find the acceptance to where you're at, that's sometimes pretty difficult. It took me a long time to be able to accept who I was and what I've done, and just accept that I can't do anything about it. There's absolutely zero I can do about the past, plenty I can do about the future, but right now I can only do for me today.
And that's it. Mental health's a volunteer program. You can only do it if you want to. So you have to work out where you are, accept where you are, and then lead yourself. No one can do it for you. You have to lead yourself. People can help you, support you, tell you how to lead yourself out, but you have to lead yourself out of it.
Yeah. Paul, you're nodding as if you got something to throw onto that.
Yeah, I was just thinking what John's just said and Stacey just said, and it reminded me of a book by, who is it? Nicholas Taleb. It's called Anti-Fragile. And he talks about the anti-fragile mindset. And what Stacey said actually summed it up. You go through these different stages of turmoil, you have adversity, and you have to then protect yourself. If you're listening to other people's stories as well, that's adversity for you because you're taking on everybody else's adversity. And that's cumulative. And that can really affect you from a psychological and emotional point of view. But Taleb's book he says everybody should work to becoming having an anti-fragile mindset where you're stronger, you're more robust, you're more creative, you're more adaptable. And that's what we need to be all doing, is creating this anti-fragile mindset so we are more resilient. And if you get a chance to read his book, it's absolutely fantastic.
Anti-fragile.
I got a board game for my boys. I got teenage boys and we're larrikins, so I hope this doesn't offend. But it was from a shop. But I think it sums up resilience. Have you seen? Can you see that?
Yeah.
It's choppery, HTF, harden the up. And resilience is nothing short of that. You get to a point where you've just got to harden them up. You've got to accept where you are, harden them, and just do it. Life's not supposed to be easy. We're going to have things, and if you can't get through something, then get someone who can help you through it. But whatever's sent to you for a reason, and it's your task. Everyone's sent different things. So someone said to me a long time ago at a big conference, they said, if you could put all your problems in a transparent box in a room of 3,000 people and bring it down and put it there, and everyone can see all your problems and they can see their problems and everyone else's problems, you'd rush to get your problems back because they're sent to you for a reason. Not always good, not bad, but they're for a reason. They're your thing to overcome. So, and that's life. And we just got to keep getting up, keep punching.
Well, on that, getting up and keep. Stacey, do you want to throw something on that?
Yeah, I was just going to add to that because I know that John sort of mentioned about, we have to go through these things. And I think that going through it's part of it. But I think what real resilience is, it's how we grow through these things. And that's what I've discovered is that I think resilience, because so often resilience is like, it's bouncing back and it's all this stuff, which I just feel it sells it short. And I really feel that so often, particularly in the corporate space where I've done most of my work, is unfortunately resilience has become synonymous with coping. And again, like that's not entirely resilience. Resilience, I feel, it's a growth strategy, it's a learning strategy, it's proactive, it's all these things. It's being able to learn from these challenges, become stronger out the other side, but feeling things along the way. It's not just that we don't feel stuff. It's not that we're completely bulletproof and stuff like that. It just gives us that, I guess, emotional agility in a way to be able to navigate our way through it, but making sure that we're always working on our resilience so that we can, when we get hit with those challenges, that we don't get completely, knocked off course. It slows us down a little bit, but when you've got that resilience to go, again, like my first thing is coming with that acceptance is about responsibility and gratitude. And so anytime something goes wrong, the first thing I do is I say thank you. It's just like, thank you for the opportunity to be who I am, where I am, with what I have at this moment in time. Thank you.
And you can't get rid of tolerance, can you? Like, you tolerate something, you are what you tolerate. But once you accept it, that's when you can move on to what you were saying, the gratitude, the forgiveness and all that. But you can't, if you're tolerating it, you're enduring it, it's sapping you of energy. Once you accept it and move into that, like what you was like, do you agree? Like, is that, because to me, that's what you were saying.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's I think also too that sometimes that there could be a tendency for people to think they have to just move on straight away and not feel it. And I think that that's dangerous, because if we don't actually feel stuff in the moment, then it's going to come back and bite us on the arse, and it's going to come back and bite us harder than when it was in that moment. So it's not saying that we don't have feelings, or we're some kind of robotic beings that just keep plowing on no matter what happens. It's about, as I said, it's taking the hit, it's feeling the hit, it's accepting it and going thank you, and then it's going, what can I learn from this? That's what I think is great. And sometimes we don't know what that learning is until sometimes it could be years down the track. But for me, I ask that question and plant that seed. And then eventually, once you figure out what the learning is, then I turn around and I go, okay, well, how can this help someone else? Because suddenly that moment that seemed so negative at the time, if I learned something and that could help someone else, then, geez, what a bloody valuable experience that was.
I think can I just chip in there? Because I think one of the things that we're all talking about here is, especially right at the beginning and all the way through the pathway, all the way through the journey, it's all about choice. Yeah. Now, we can choose to grow or we can choose to suffer. And when I really switched on to mindset, I went to a hospital appointment on my elbow crutches in the chair, and there was a guy sat in the same waiting room as me, and he was a doctor, and he'd had the same operation as me, and he wouldn't engage in eye contact or conversation. He was morose. He was in a dark place, just staring at the floor. But we were in hospital at the same time together, and the same time scale had passed. And I'd already started computer, sax, education, and he was nowhere. But the question is, how did I get my mindset and he had his mindset? Maybe I was more resilient than he was because of experience before. I don't know. Maybe I made a choice to actually work through that, to accept it, to have purpose, to take action. Maybe he hadn't reached that point. And you have to make choices. And sometimes they're really hard choices. If you don't make that choice, you're going nowhere.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Paul. And that's what I've realized too. Like, ultimately, the turning point was making a choice.
Yeah.
And it's that proverbial fork in the road. Are you going to get over it? Or are you going to get on with it? Or are you going to give up? And a lot of people turn around and go, it's not that simple. I'm like, yeah, it actually is. Like, you don't have to know where you're going, or you don't have to know what that big thing is ahead. But all you need to know is, I'm not happy with where I am right now, and I want something better, and I deserve something better. So I'm choosing now that I'm leaving this headspace, this existence. This is where it ends today. And it comes back to, as Scotty said before, it's, we can't change what's happened. We can't control to much of an extent what's coming up, but all we have ownership is this moment. And if we are truly in the moment, it's impossible to feel anxious or depressed either if you are truly right in the moment, because feeling depressed is about thinking about the past, and feeling anxious is about thinking about the future. But if we're right in the moment, truly in the moment, then you can't feel either of those two things.
But you choose to be wherever you want to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's all a choice.
Yeah.
You got a choice. The next step from a choice is a decision. It's a decision that takes you from that choice to where you want to go. That's your action, is your decision. The choice is when you go, hang on, I can choose here, but it's the decision of that choice that is the action.
Yeah. That's the forward movement, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's, and everyone, like, everyone talks about, I don't want to make a mistake, and that's a problem for a lot of people. But the people that succeed in life in any endeavor that they do make the most mistakes. So when you get that decision, because it's when you go from a choice to a decision, the decision, you sit there and go, oh, is this decision right? Am I going to make the right decision? Well, make a mistake. Who gives a shit? You know, if you don't make a decision, you're stuck in that thing. You've got that ostrich in the sand mentality. You know, you're stuck. You know, you've got choices, but you're not choosing. You haven't made a decision. So make that decision and then, move forward. I think, exactly what you guys are saying. It's awesome.
Yeah, and I'm loving hearing this because choice and emotions, and I want to get back to emotions in a second, because for me it's about action and inaction. You can fix an action. You can do something to make it better, or, you know, you can actually fix it. If you have inaction, you can't make it wrong or right because there's no action. So just create an action. That action can be as simple as smiling. Someone you don't know, smiling at them. That might just change, take a reaction. It's going to open up other things. If you're not sure what to do, try a smile. Now, I'm going to jump onto the emotion side of it that Stacey brought up, because inside the campfire is an amazing person, Angela Heiser, and I love – sorry, there's a comment just popped up and I've got to throw it up. Not choosing is still a choice.
No, it's not. It's lack of a choice.
Jessica, that is brilliant. So if you're not choosing, it's still a choice, so make another choice. That's brilliant, Jessica. Thank you. So emotions. So Angela Heiser is just she breaks down the emotions. She's doing 52 emotions inside the campfire. Highly recommend everybody just check them out and have a good look. But it's okay to feel your emotions and to understand them. Acceptance is that. Knowing that emotion that you're feeling, the fear, the sadness, the anger, whatever it is, it's okay to feel it. Where the breakthrough comes from is when you actually go and attempt to take an action to do something about it. It only has to be a small step. And everybody sitting here around here on this panel tonight has all taken action to get over things. And I would actually like to know one of the emotions from each panelist that you went through, that you got stuck in, that perhaps you've got a tool to get out of. And I'm going to start with you, Paul, if that's okay.
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
I remember on my elbow crutches, and I really wanted to get walking again as soon as I could. You know, they said it wouldn't. You can probably do it, but I thought, well, you're only doctors. What do you know? And because they don't know everything, and they admit they don't know everything. I mean, I stood up in court with a doctor and a consultant surgeon. He said, "Science is medical science is a black art. We don't know everything." Yeah. And he was right. And I remember going. My wife was brilliant. She would get me in the chair. We get to a lamppost, get out on the elbow crutches, walk to another lamppost. And it took ages. It really took such a long time. And the real emotion there was frustration. I could see it. I physically couldn't get to it on the first few occasions. And then when I did, floods of tears, you know, exhilaration. And it was like, okay, before I go for the next lamppost, I've got to make sure I do this one with more fluidity, with more ease. And we just kept doing that until I felt right to move on to the next one. And then exactly the same with the next one. I got a quarter of the way, lamppost, and a quarter of the way to the next one, and then halfway. And this was every day. And this was months, literally months to get through that. And it was frustrating. You overcome the frustration by hitting one lamppost, hitting that target. But then you want the next one because you want what it gives you, what that independence is going to be in the future. And you go for the next one and you can't get there and you're frustrated again. But you have to learn to control that frustration and channel it. And when you can channel the frustration, that's when the magic works. That's when things really happen. And that's what I call it. It is when the magic works, when you start channeling your emotions for where you want to go, to get that forward momentum. And for everybody, it's different. Every single one of us, it's going to be different. It might be just a simple thing of being able to reach up to brush your hair. You know, I've seen people like this, and I've talked to people like this. And other people, it's like, you know, I want to walk to the shop. Yeah, okay. And it's taken them 3 years to get to that point. But because they've channeled their frustrations and they've channeled that in the right direction, they've developed this anti-fragile mindset we spoke about earlier on. And they've become tougher and they've become more robust and they've become stronger physically and mentally. And I think channeling frustration is probably one of the things I can give as a takeaway here.
So one emotion, frustration. Channeling is frustration. And what I loved hearing just then, once you got that first hurdle completed, you built trust in yourself that the next one's going to be stronger.
Oh, yeah.
About getting over that first one. The first one undoubtedly is the hardest one. But that's once you try, that's where trust comes from. That's where confidence comes from. So if I'm wrong there, Paul, pull me up after you've had your cup up.
Absolutely right.
So, Stacey.
Yeah, I'm just trying to pick which one now. So remind me again of the context of the question.
That's a good point.
I was just so involved listening to Paul, and I'm like being present listening to Paul rather than thinking about what I was going to say next. So bring me back.
Notes. Just as well I keep notes, and that's I'm always writing when I'm looking at it. So we've had frustration. What was one of the emotions that really hit home that you had to work through?
Yeah, I think anger was mine.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely, especially as a teenager, it was definitely anger. I was angry that my life was not what I'd planned it. I was angry about the things I couldn't do. I was angry about the things that my whole sense of identity had gone that I felt at that point in time. Because said my identity and my future identity, like I guess my present identity at that time was athlete, and my future identity was vet, and they were the things that I'd held quite dear for a very long time. And then when I couldn't do those, then there was an anger around that. There was, I guess the other thing is being that age as well, being a teenage girl. The identity thing is that then also I felt that then I felt a little bit invisible in a way, and particularly to sort of feeling like, how am I ever going to be attractive to someone again, and those sort of things. So those sort of things really were big issues that I was dealing with at the time, and I said I kept that all to myself, and it wasn't until much later on, and like I didn't write back then. I didn't talk to anybody. Like everything just mulled over in my head. So it was a pretty gnarly place to be at that point in time. And it wasn't until I was much older that then I was able to turn around and go, well, being angry at myself is definitely not a productive use of my energy. And again, once I was able to flip that anger into gratitude, that's when that weight was lifted, and that's when really the world opened up. And then I began to see that I had an abundance of opportunity. I literally had a blank canvas. And once I realized too, a big learning I had was, if I didn't want people to feel sorry for me, I had to stop feeling sorry for myself, because we attract who we are, we attract how we are. And so when those sort of things started to shift, then the people in my world started to shift with it. And so then I went on from that space to then going out and getting a great job, and having relationships, and then going on to doing other different jobs. And then I ran for Parliament for state parliament in Sydney because I wanted to make a difference. Like, this is in my 20s. Like, these are all the types of things that I did once I'd realised that anger's not productive. It's a closed thing, and all it does is shuts you. It shrinks you. Whereas gratitude expands you and it opens you up to other people. And then once I realized that if I focused on making a difference and helping others, then like that was just massive. So and they were sort of those sort of shifts that I made. And now, as you know, Scott, that now I live from a place of complete gratitude. I just feel that's my superpower. Is that.
I'm going to put that little surprise in later. Oh, I was just going to chuck it in now, but I'm not. I'll wait for a little bit. I'm just, there's a couple of comments that have popped up, and I think this woman's amazing. Marta, I'm popping these up right now. John, Paul, can you see these?
No.
Okay. No, perfect. I'm going to read them. So I haven't had a car for 3 months. So I walked with my calipers 35 minutes to get to the shop.
Excellent.
And I just, yeah, it is. And she's a gorgeous, strong woman. I love her. Like, whoa. Okay, that's why I've gone a bit far, but I'll get back to that one in a sec. All right. So trying is not a word in my vocabulary. I decide to just do. And I think that's something else which we'll get onto in a little bit. Vocabulary is an important one too. But I just wanted to pop them up quickly because, Marta, I really want you to connect with Stacey. Stacey's someone that I think you'd have a great with. So, sorry, back over to it just while we're doing it. It is live. People are questioning, so we'll throw around a few bits and pieces. Yeah, I'll get to one in a sec. So, John, emotions. What emotions did you go? We've got anger, we've got frustration. I'm sure you've had both.
Okay.
Is there another one?
Geez, I know how Stacey felt now. I'm like, shoot, hang on, I've got to go back. I was too busy listening to everyone else.
Oh, that isn't it?
Mate, I talk a lot about emotions, as you know. I've learnt from a very young age that emotions are something you really need to have leadership over. The probably biggest struggle I had was probably in 2016 when I'd been to the doctor 8 times with a lump in my breast, and I kept saying to this doctor, I thought it was a cyst. Anyway, he sent me for an ultrasound. I went, I'm not pregnant. I've got a lump in my breast. Anyway, he sent me there. He said, yeah, no, it's nothing to worry about. And for 8 months, I went back over and over, probably, I don't know, 8, 10 times. And I got to the points where I got frustrated, Paul, and frustration pushed me into action. And I went, listen, just take the friggin' thing out. And I didn't say friggin'. And he sent me to a surgeon. The surgeon was he was a breast cancer surgeon, but he was also a general surgeon. And he said, listen, you don't have to do this. And I said, listen, just get this, we're doing a PG-13 rated here, but I was at my frustrated wit's end. I'm like, cut it out. I'm sick of it. It hurts. It's in the way. Anyway, he goes, I don't like the look of it. And I went, okay, whatever that means. The next day he said, listen, you got to come and get your stitches. I had a lumpectomy on my breast. And he said, come and get the stitches out in 2 weeks. I'm sending this off to get examined or whatever they do, pathology. And if it's bad news, I'll let you know. If it's good news, just come out and get the stitches out. So, yeah, righto, stitches. So I turned up for the stitches. He goes, oh, shit, sorry, I was supposed to tell you. You got breast cancer. You got to have a mastectomy. We've got to test and see if it's moved into your lymph nodes. And they worked out it had. Then I had to have sentinel node clearance. And then and this all happened over 2 years, but it was like 8 surgeries. Then they hit me with the chemo. The chemo nearly killed me twice from viral infections because, I'm like, first day of chemo, I'm going to go out and have the biggest go at the gym. I was all right. Yeah, dickhead. It doesn't work that way. You got to rest until you're tired. Anyway, so I got through the chemo. Then I went and got I had the mastectomy, I had the lumpectomy, I had the sentinel node clearance, then I had the clearance of the lymph nodes. Then they did the chemo. Then I had a little bit of lymphedema, but they put me onto radiation, where the doctor went on holidays and they burnt me. So from the center of my chest through to the to my like halfway to the middle of my back, they burnt me all the way down to like my lung, and there was no skin left. It was an open wound that I had to put a wound dressing on every day, and it was extremely painful. And I had so then I went to so that slowly healed up. The doctor said sorry. He went on holidays for a week when he should have said, "Hang on, we've got to stop this." Then I went blind from the steroids from the chemo, advanced cataracts, so I got that fixed. And then I had lymphedema in my arm, so you can actually see on one of my things. Both my arms, you can see my right arm still a little bit bigger, but my right arm, I was like one of them crabs with, like a big nipper and a little nipper, like it was huge. Sort of looked like a honey on one side. It was great. And then they had to take it out. So the liposuction was like people sit there and go, I'm getting fat, I'm going to have liposuction. If you like the feeling of cockroaches running up and down your arms from nerve pain for 6 to 9 months, go right ahead. I don't recommend it. And then, so recovering from all that, then I got hit. I'm a physical person. I like training. At the moment I've got more chins than a Chinese phone book, but I like to train and be fit. So I started training. All of a sudden, my heart rate's going through the roof. I thought I had asthma. They said, no, you're having panic attacks. I'm not having a panic attack. I said, no, your body is because of what you've been through, so you've got to slow it down. Then they put me on those beta blockers, and I just went, I was 145 kilos. I was big in a couple of months, and I was training 5 days a week. Then I got onto a Fat to Fit program and come back. So the whole time I was doing that, I'm spiraling. Like, you don't go from happy to sad. You go, you're either happy and you go down, just you spiral. And once you hit there, sometimes you can spiral fast, sometimes you can spiral slow. I spiraled real fast when I heard about cancer. And then I realised, I've got kids here, I've got staff, I've got a business, I've got 12 staff. I can't let my shit go. So I had to get that leadership inside me and get me up and hold myself up. But I also understood the endocrine system in that I knew that like if I'm sad, I'm hunched over, depressed, I'm putting all these bad things in my body through the endocrine system. If I'm upbeat, I'm happy, I'm putting the good stuff in. So while I'm going and having the chemo and the operations, everyone kept commenting and saying, why are you so positive? Why are you so upbeat? Like that's my personality naturally, but I really pushed it because, and I said to quite a few of them, I said, because you're putting that much shit in my body, I need to put the good stuff in. And the only person that can put the good stuff in is yourself. The only person who can put a smile on your face is yourself. The only person who can make you happy is yourself. If you want to sit there and blame other people because of what's happened to you, or you want to be a victim, you want to stick your head in the sand, go right ahead. It's a volunteer army. You're allowed to do it. But if you want to be happy, it's a choice. If you want to be positive, it's a choice. If you want to progress forward, it's a choice. Sure, bad things happen. But my father always said to me, you might have had some bad things happen to you, but there's people that have had much worse. And there's, you don't have to search too far in today's society to find people that have had much worse.
Did that give you comfort? Did that give you comfort hearing that from your dad? Did that give you comfort?
No, it taught me resilience. It taught me not to be a victim. It taught me not to get caught up. It taught me to accept what's happened and take action.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about a bloke who's smoked from the age of 6, whose father died at the age of 12. He was then, at the age of 13, left on his own in Cootamundra with £1,000, which was a lot of money back then, or a lot of money, whatever it was. Yeah. And he basically brought himself up. So we're talking about a pretty resilient bloke in his own mind, in his own seat, like by his own values. So, how proud of you?
How proud of you, mate? How proud of you are you?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Because that's something for me that I think if you know someone who is having a hard time at the minute, letting them know that you're proud of them is really important. But I think the way you do that has to be sincere. So it can't just be, mate, I'm proud of you at the minute. I'm actually proud of you because of this action. Go a bit deeper and give people that little bit of confidence about what you're proud of them for. And I think that really helps people work towards resilience because it's – sorry?
I think we're more resilient too than the previous generations. Like we were saying the other night, Scotty, your father and my father, they're not the sort of people that talk about their emotions. There's more, more people talk about their emotions now than they used to. Mm-hmm. But there's nothing out there to teach you. There's no emotional guidance. It's an area that's really lacking. There's some coaches out there that do it, and resilience is a part of it, like what Stacey does and Paul does. But there's not many people have access to it.
Yeah, I think that's starting to change. I think that's something that we're all actually working towards. And it's something that I'm actually enjoying learning a lot about. I was an angry man for a long time, and it was just fear-based, and I didn't understand it. But that was my big emotion, anger, and I let it go whenever I didn't know how to deal with anything else. So I want to thank you all for your answers on that. I'm just a little cautious. We've been going already for an hour and 6 minutes already. We are flying through it. I could talk about this for a long time, and I don't want to take up everybody's time tonight. I am going to ask everybody to give us some questions. I'm actually going to ask this panel to come back again. And if we can find a time to do this, because I think it's something really worthwhile. I know inside this panel there's so much more information and just gold. So if you're watching tonight and you're really enjoying this, give us some questions, give us some fuel, and we'll come back to you with our best. Is that okay, guys?
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, brilliant. All right. So on this tonight, my standard thing at the end of every panel. So I ask everybody for your one bit of advice. We've got people at the minute that want to know what resilience is, and they're trying to find it because they're just not sure. What's the one bit of advice you could give to somebody to help them find it at the minute? John?
Accept it, get up, keep punching.
Oof. Yep, go. Love it. Paul?
Listen to your heart. You really got to listen to your heart because your heart speaks volumes.
Yeah. Beautiful. Stacey?
Am I the only one that just busted out with rock set in my head then as soon as you said listen to your heart? Just sorry. I'm a human jukebox.
How did it sound?
I've been there 3 times.
I can't sing like she could. No. But anyway, yeah. But as I said, I'm a human jukebox. I hear 1 word, 2 words, a phrase, and my brain just bursts out into song. So, but again, it's totally that though, Paul. It's trusting yourself. It's trusting the messages that you're getting from your heart, from your body. It's staying connected, grounded. I've found that connecting with myself, and I like to say source, has been incredibly valuable. Going back to, I meditate a lot, I write a lot. So for me, it's a lot about that introspection and staying really connected to that. And writing has been the big thing for me. Like I keep an evening journal. I haven't missed a night in over 5 years now. It's my evening ritual, and it started just out with what was the best thing that happened today. Today I had the opportunity to complete the sentence, and now, like the last 2-3 nights, I've written over 1,000 words because I'm just so in flow and I'm so in tune, and that's been a big thing. So I think it's being connected, listening to your heart, your messages that you're getting, trusting yourself, and I think finding an outlet to express that. And I find writing is the way that I express it. I think at the moment, expression is so important. And I've heard it said that depression is a lack of expression. Mm-hmm. So I feel that if we can express how we're feeling in whatever format we do, then that really helps us to be able to really grow through this experience and be able to come out the other side in better shape than what we went in.
I love that, and I was going to play your voice message today, but I'm not. I'm going to save it for our next one because
okay.
you want to know how to.
He loves a free in the deep end.
5 minutes. I reckon we'll go there. All right. You want to know how to work through things. You want to know how to start putting smiles on faces. This is how you do it.
Okay, let me just put it. I'm going to go on Do Not Disturb, so you'll get it straight away. Okay. There you go.
Beautiful. Thank you. All right, I want you to hear this. So I met Stacey at a conference, and my bit of advice is going to lead into what this is. So, all right. Here we go.
Hi, it's Stacey. Great to hear from you. I'm not able to speak right now. I'd love to continue the conversation though. So please leave your number and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Also, while you're there, let me know what's the best thing that's happened in your world today. Have a spectacular day and we'll talk soon.
Boom. How did that make you feel? Did you start thinking about the best thing you did today? I did. Mate, I love you for that. So, which is going to lead into my one bit of advice to everybody at the moment. And I'll come up with some gold for the next one. But if you want to learn about resilience, you want to learn how to get through something, you're going through something really hard, try something. Just try it. If it doesn't work, try another thing. Doesn't work, try another thing. It's always amazing how it's always the last key on the ring that opens the final door. Yeah. So on that tonight, I want to thank my gorgeous panel. I want to thank everybody for your comments tonight. This is just the start of a very big conversation because I can tell you right now, there's 3 other people sitting on this panel that have got a lot more to put into this. So thank you very much. Thanks, Stacey. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, John, for an amazing night. And we'll keep talking. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.